day with the City of San Angelo. Today we are here with Joe Spano, the Municipal Manager for Republic Services. Hey, Joe.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here with us today.
Great to be here. Thank you.
We are going to talk about trash, recycling, bulk pickup, landfill, all that good stuff. So let's start off talking about trash.
Sure.
Can you talk about the current service offered here in San Angelo?
Sure. Yeah. So City of San Angelo has what I would call a pretty robust program, right? So we've got curbside recycling every other week, bulk pickup up to 5 cubic yards every other week, plus weekly, what's called MSW, right? Just regular household trash pickup. So pretty robust, right? It's the city put together a great program years ago. We've made a couple of changes here and there. Over the years, these things are always fluid. You kind of change when, you kind of change when the market changes. You have to make small changes like in recycling, but pretty much this is what we would call a Cadillac service compared to other cities.
Okay, so when it comes to those brown bins, what should be placed in there and what should not?
Yeah, so there's actually more you can put in the brown bin than what you can't put in there. It's obviously household trash, so everything that you're throwing away on a daily basis in your 13-gallon kitchen bag is perfectly fine to go in there. You can also put either broken hose, rubber hoses and things of that nature, right? It's easier to probably say what doesn't go in there than what can, right? So normally you obviously don't want propane bottles, right? Of course, and paint, any chemicals of any kind, things that can't go into a landfill obviously can't go into the garbage. But most everything that we deal with on a day-to-day basis is pretty much able to go in it.
Are there any common items that you've seen that people might think are okay to throw away that aren't?
Yeah, so we see a lot of paint, and we see a lot of oils, engine oils. People doing, maybe changing their own oil at home, or working on vehicles, things like that. So we see a lot of motor oil and things like that, and we try to educate the customer if we can see it, right? But not, if you think about how large those 95 gallon toters are. You're not going to, with the lid closed, you really don't see what's in there sometimes until after the fact. So that's why we try to catch it before, our drivers actually, they try to be pretty diligent and if the lid's open and something's on top, they're able to maybe not dump it at that point in time, take a photo of it, document it, educate the customer. Hopefully they can rectify the situation and then we can move on, right? But I think that you see a lot of, so paint can go into a paint can go into the brown bin, right? It just can't have wet or fresh paint in it. And there are, I'm sure there's a fancy word for it that I can't come up with right now, but there is a way to, harden the paint and make that, like kitty litter and things of that nature, right, to kind of dry it out. Or simply taking the lid off we all have old paint in our garages that sometimes gets hard. Well, it's only hard on the top. So underneath it, you may have 1 inch or a ½ inch of hardening, but underneath it is still wet paint. And so what happens when that gets tipped upside down? 9 times out of 10, it's going to open up. It's going all over the street, all over the windshield, and all over the truck, right? So that's why paint, and it can't go to the landfill, but there's a myriad of reasons why you don't want to throw paint away. So we want to make sure that paint is absolutely hardened before you're throwing it in the landfill.
So kind of touch on that a little bit more, like why is it detrimental to the landfill to put things like paint and grease and oil and stuff like that in there? And what are ways that some citizens, aside from that, is there any other ways in San Angelo that people could dispose of that? I know there's Keep San Angelo Beautiful, sometimes do events where they could take those kinds of things.
Yeah, so the hazard that it's called household hazardous waste, right? And the TCEQ and has very stringent rules on what can go into landfills, and they exist for a reason, right? You have to be a good steward of the environment. You have to be a good steward of your infrastructure, of your water, of your streams, of your rivers, things like that. Depending on where you live, you have lakes and rivers and streams. So all those types of things are reasons why the federal and state government are involved in what is going inside landfills. It's all to keep everybody safe and be a good steward of the environment, right? The city, and I don't off the top of my head know if it's once or twice a year, but they do household hazardous waste events. And I believe in the past they've been held at, the Central High School parking lot, where you can go through, I believe they do it on a Saturday, where you can go through and bring your paints and things of that nature that you typically hold on to throughout the year and wait for this event. So you're not disposing them in an unlawful way.
So just a plug. So Keeps Angelo Beautiful does a lot of those events, and they usually do them a couple of times of the year. So I would encourage people to, go to their Facebook page and look for those things. I believe more recently we're holding them in the Coliseum since that's a city facility. So just be on the lookout for those. We'll share those on our Facebook page as well. But those are the types of things that you would want to take those greases, those paints to dispose of them instead of pouring them in your trash.
We do also have on our website some helpful locations for disposals of items that can't go in the landfill. So,
yeah, and that's a good point. I will say the city has a very, very informative solid waste website. The solid waste department and along with you guys does a great job of communicating and making sure the information is up to date and things like that. And so kudos to you as well as the solid waste department and anyone else that's involved in kind of upkeeping that website. It's there's a plethora of information as far as events that are the HHW events and some of the things we just talked about, the do's and don'ts of recycling and garbage and bulk pickup, which we're probably going to get to. But all that is on the website. Everybody's calendars are on the website to make sure you know your days. So it's extremely informative. If you haven't been on it, I implore you to get on there and take a look at it.
let's talk some more about some of those do's. Why is it important to bag your trash?
Yeah, so controversial subject, right? So if you think about the service that we have here, your garbage, your brown bin, we like for it to be bagged. That just keeps things from, if you think about what we're throwing away on a daily basis, there's liquids, things of that nature. We don't want it on the streets because where's the streets go when it rains, right? The streets are going, into the ditches and, I'm not an engineer. I don't know how it all works, but we all know it winds up going into the lakes, into the streams and things of that nature. So that's one of the reasons we want to make sure that we're keeping liquids as contained as possible, right? Because the trucks are sealed. When you throw a bag in the truck and it gets compacted on the street, those seals in the rear of the truck are very robust and they keep things from kind of leaking out onto the street. The other thing is we have very strong winds here, right? On certain days, they're extremely strong. And so we need to do what we can to keep our streets clean and keep bags out of the trees, things like that. And so bagging your trash absolutely helps keep highways clean and keeps our neighborhoods clean. The controversy sometimes is it's the exact opposite on the recycling side, right? Mm-hmm. and here's why. When we pick up the recyclables at home, we bring them to a material recovery facility where they're getting sorted. So we can't bring the recyclables in bags because for two reasons. One, this is a hand sorting process for the most part, right? There's people actually sorting through the different, ones and twos, plastics and the carton, all that time. It's single stream, so they're touching everything. So you can't have those folks having to open up bags all day long because they would basically never get finished, right? I mean, you think about having to rip open that bag, first of all, see what's in it. You wouldn't be able to tell trash from recycling. And so it really creates an organized way for those folks to start sorting it. So it's a double-edged sword, right? It's like, well, you're asking me to bag my garbage, but then my recyclables aren't bagged. Absolutely understand. The trucks, in a perfect world, the ones that we're using in San Angelo, the Corrado trucks, are designed for that loose debris when it goes up in the air. On the top of the hopper, there's hula skirts, right? And those hula skirts are designed to try to catch some of that loose debris if it's windy. There's no doubt some slips by, right? It absolutely happens. Happens in front of my house, happens in front of yours. It's going to happen. We have very strong winds here sometimes, sometimes sustained. And, unfortunately, things are going to slip when you're 16 feet in the air and you're turning you're turning a huge bucket full of loose recyclables that really don't weigh anything. If you think about how light they are, they don't have any weight to kind of, for gravity to take place, right? They're very lightweight materials, and so the slightest bit of wind sometimes can just grab that, that piece of cardboard or that tin or that soda can, and it happens. But for the most part, it's a pretty clean system.
Is hula skirt the formal name for that?
I actually think so. It is today.
I like it.
It's the hula skirt. We'd love to show you sometime. The hula skirt. It's actually, it looks just like a hula skirt.
So talk about a single driver, how much ground they have to cover a day. And like it is, they can't, in the old, not the old days, years ago, you had guys on the back of the trucks that would come by and pick up trash cans. We get that question a lot about, I set extra trash out on a normal trash pickup day, not a bulk day. Why didn't they pick up my extra trash can? Why didn't they pick up my, and it's because they have so much ground to cover. Is that right?
Correct. So the system that we use here is fully automated, right? So you have one guy or girl on a truck, and they are perusing the neighborhoods, and they are just they're picking them up, and it's just a few seconds per collection, and they typically do not, we don't want them getting out of the truck for safety, right? So the rear load, yes, we do it for bulk, but nationwide in the industry, there's always been a push the past, I would say, decade. There's been a real push to get guys off the back of the truck, and girls. It's just a very dangerous place to be, especially in metropolitan areas. But in the metro areas, that's really, it's a double-edged sword, because in the metro areas, it's really the most efficient way to pick up trash. So, but we only care about San Angelo, Texas right now, right? Those guys are on an average day, most of those guys and girls are going, 800 to, 1,000 homes during the day. So you can imagine at 35 or 40 seconds per collection, they have to finish their routes, right? We don't get to run rogue, right? That's the beauty of the San Angelo contract, and most is we have rules, we have regulations, and we have standards that we're held to, right? We have to pick up garbage, just the way it goes, right? So if somebody's tired at 2:00 in the afternoon, we don't just get to say, oh yeah, we'll come home, right? We have to finish our work, and they have to finish their route. Now, things happen, right? Trucks, hydraulic lines break down, trucks break down. I mean, think about these things are hauling a lot of weight. They're doing a lot of work all day long. So yes, things do break down, but for the most part, everyone gets picked up every day. But we're held to a very strict standard in the city of San Angelo. They did a very good job of making sure that we're held accountable. And I think we do a pretty good job at that. There's always going to be anomalies, but it just happens, right? It's life, and things are. But we're very quick to rectify, right? Very, very quick. Usually next day, sometimes the day before. I mean, sometimes the day of, but typically the next day. If there's a problem, it's done. But those men and women have a very hard job, and they have to finish, and that's why they can't get out of the truck and pick bags up that are on the ground. Now, there are days that we do that if we're making up a day that was a weather day, right? So if we had an ice event and we couldn't get somewhere for a couple of days and they have extra bags, then, absolutely, we always, and we'll put out call blasts and things like that and communicate with the city that, look, we understand you have a week's worth of trash, right? We went through the big snow or ice deal, was it in 2021? Can't remember. And so, bags were allowed on the ground then, right? It was not, we missed almost two full days of pickup. But for the most part, it's designed so those guys can get in and get done, right? And the other side is if you have a problem and you're putting garbage on the street and it's a weekly problem, then chances are you probably need an extra can, right? You may be underserviced. And that's just a simple phone call to, the water office and letting them know that, hey, I think I may need an extra garbage can. And, they can discuss what the cost is over the phone for the customer and put in the order and get it delivered.
I was going to give you an opportunity. Do you want to give your people some kudos and talk? I mean, I'm sure you have a ton of people that do amazing work each day that nobody really sees, or nobody really notices, I guess I would say.
Yeah, we've got we have a big crew that does a fantastic job every day. That San Angelo City of is our hub, right? And we run more than a dozen other cities out of the city of San Angelo, out of our office, and it takes a tremendous amount of work, as you can imagine, to get that done. Between the people see our drivers all the time, right? They're the face. They're the face of the company. They're the ones doing, the work out in the streets. They're the ones honking the horns and getting the Gatorades given to them. But there's a plethora of people in our office, and quite frankly, still from COVID that are home, that are doing the work to ensure that everything gets done. Where it's our fantastic billing department, our maintenance department, right? The unsung heroes that never get seen are the folks that are keeping these trucks 24 hours a day running, right? To make sure that they are safe, to make sure that they are free of, for the most part, free of leaking onto our streets, things like that. So we have a whole maintenance crew that is either mobile out on the street, working on things as they happen in real time, or working overnight every day of the week to make sure we're ready to launch the next day. We also have our operations team, the folks that are keeping everything going, right? We have an operations manager that ensures that all the folks that I just spoke about are, completely aligned with what needs to be done and making sure and kind of driving the results and looking at the stats and looking at the missed pickups and looking at, at the routing, right? Routing is a huge piece of our business. And, we've got dispatchers that are on the phone all day with our drivers, telling them in real time what's going on. We had a phone call about this. We had a phone call about that. Can we rectify this? So there's a lot that goes on as we're doing this interview. There's a lot of people doing a lot of stuff to make sure garbage gets picked up. And then you have what's called our post-collections team, the folks that you only see if you go to the landfill. From the maintenance team that's out there doing the same thing, keeping all that yellow, we call it yellow iron, keeping all that yellow iron moving, keeping the compactors going, the bulldozers going, the folks that are weighing, the guys and girls that are operating the scale house, that are making sure everything is weighed correctly and customers are being charged correctly and things like that. And we have an operation manager out there that's ensuring that all of that's going on. We have landfill engineers that are making sure the gas systems, which is an absolutely very complicated system that runs underneath the landfill to ensure that all the gas systems are working. So there's a lot going on besides tipping it at the curb and moving on down the road. There's a lot going on with garbage, so it's pretty exciting.
So you talked about earlier. You were talking about the missed pickups with with the ice storm, but in events, not special events like weather. How often do you get reports of missed pickups? And then going off of that, and I know that there's a way that y'all have of knowing which homes were or were not serviced, and I want you to talk about that software y'all have.
Sure. So missed pickups they're things that are just going to happen, right? Now, I will say that we look at each missed pickup every day, and they have to be vetted because we have to make sure. And again, we're held to a standard, right? Not only by the city of San Angelo, which we work for, but we're held to a standard by our own company, right? We are in the garbage and recycling business. So it is very important that we're picking it up. And our company holds we're BUs. It's called a business unit. So our company holds each of the BUs to an extremely high standard on what we call MPUs, missed pickups. So they're all carefully vetted from almost the second we get the call, because that's how important they are. And it takes a lot of time, right? You have to ensure, first of all, that the customer is getting taken care of. Number one, We have, no matter whose fault it is, we have to make sure the customer is getting taken care of. Number two, we want to find out, okay, is it a true miss? Did we actually miss that garbage, and why? Did the driver just drive by it? Was there a truck there? Things happen, right? We all have work. There's a lot of work going on with, infrastructure being laid in different parts of the communities right now with, fiber and things like that. So there's a lot of machinery that's in the street right now. So we get some calls over that, right? I mean, there's just times where things are going to be blocked, and we understand that it happens. There's also times where we just make a mistake, right? I am never going to sit here and say that we are absolutely perfect every day, right? Because no one is. We deal with people. We don't deal with robots. Our people are out there every day, and there's a lot of distractions in that truck. There's a lot of buzzers, and there's a lot of noise going on. They're looking at their map. They're looking at their route sheet. Sometimes things just happen, right? But we always make sure that we get the customer taken care of before we're working on, finding out whose fault it is. That's the least of my worries when the MPUs are coming in as to fault. We got to get the customer service, and then we're going to figure out we're going to vet what went wrong. Is this something we did, or is this something we need to work with the customer on, right? And that's what we do every single day.
So if someone has a missed pickup,
sure,
what's the best way to get in touch with you guys to let y'all know, hey, my trash didn't get picked up for whatever reason. What's next? What is that process?
So you have two ways, right? You can for sure call Republic, right? You call, I think it's 325-481-7700. I don't really call ourselves that much, or the city, right? So the city bills, the city water office bills the trash service, right? So their fine folks down there could absolutely take it and make sure that it gets documented and sent over. And I will say that we have a fairly robust system of tracking MPUs. We've got what's called a PDV system, right? So it's a technology that we use where if a driver for some reason is unable to service a container, whether it's a commercial or doesn't matter what it is. It could be a commercial, it could be a roll-off, or it could be one of our homes. They document it on the spot, right? And that gives us a timestamp. It gives us a actual color photo, and it gives the GPS coordinates of where he was. And if I can back up for just a second, the GPS thing is very important. Sometimes we'll get calls saying, your driver just never came by. We hadn't seen him. My garbage was missed. He just never came by. Well, the beauty of that GPS is that any given time, that driver's supervisor is able to pull it up. And it has clear lines, green lines, showing everywhere that he went. And so it's easy to take a screenshot if the customer wants. It's easy to take that screenshot and say, hey, ma'am, he was at your house at 11:18. It's that precise. And then they can say, well, maybe my son didn't get it out on time. So it works both ways, right? We have ways where we can figure out, okay, did we miss it and did we not? And was that guy down the street? Well, yeah, he was. Chances are, if you go down a street that has 100 homes, you really, the way the system is designed, you typically wouldn't just skip one, right? If a truck goes down and we missed one side of the street because it's picked up later in the day, then obviously that happens. But we know that well in advance, and we're out doing call blasts. So it happens, right? It's sometimes it's us, and sometimes it's just people forget. We would love for everybody to try to get in the habit of having it out the night before. That makes life a lot easier, because if obviously we don't start the pickup on the residential side until 7 a.m. But those guys at 7 a.m. are ready to go. And so if you're the first street, if you're his first street on his route at 7 a.m. and you're out there at 7:12, you could have missed him, because those guys they're ready and they're moving. And sometimes they're parked in a parking lot waiting for that 7 o'clock so they can start their work and be within the confines of the ordinance. So if you're out there at 7:10, he might have been there at 7:01. It happens. It happens. I've done it. Trust me. It's easy to forget sometimes. So we really like people to do it the night before. This way it's done.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you segue perfectly into our next question. What can citizens do to make trash pickup go smoother? And you mentioned the night before. Explain that, why that's important, and other things they can do to help.
Yeah, we like the night before because it creates a habit, right? So I'll only speak for me, right? I always do it. I do it the night before. It's part of our routine. My wife gathers what she needs to gather on Wednesday night, and she says, "All right, it's ready for you," and that's our that's our Wednesday night, and I wheel it down to the curb, and it's a habit, and that's why I don't forget. I see folks when I leave for work sometimes at 7:45 in the morning or 7:30 in the morning or whatever I'm leaving. I do see some folks scramble into the curb because they hear the brakes, right? You can hear the squeal. When it's like the ice cream man. I can hear our brakes a couple of blocks over, and sometimes I'm like, oh man, did I forget? There's a little reminder when you hear that when you hear those brakes squeal, and sometimes panic sets in.
I've had that moment several times.
You have the moment because panic sets in. It's like, did I hear those brakes because he's already gone by, or is he just one block over? I better get out there, and there you are in your robe and your house shoes, and you're going down the driveway. But it happens. So we like for people to try to get in the habit of doing it the night before, and then of course bringing it up when you get home the next day.
I put a reminder in my phone, a weekly one.
Yeah, beautiful thing, right?
The night before.
Everyone has a smartphone. That is a great thing to do. Everyone seems like has a smartphone. Put a reminder. These days, it's interesting. Other than me, these days everyone's looking at their watches and talking to their watches, and we have so many ways to remind ourselves of doing things. That we should be able to get out there by 7 a.m., right?
Take advantage of it.
Well, let me see if I can, if I have all this right, if I'm doing my trash pickup right. So wheels against the curb on the bins.
That's right.
And you want at least about 3 feet in between each bin, so that way the arms can grab the trash cans. If they're too close together, then the arms can't get in, right?
Yeah, so that's an excellent point. And believe it or not, I get that question a lot. And people always ask, I don't understand, what's the 3-foot rule? Why do y'all care about the 3-foot rule? Well, if you've never watched those arms come out, first of all, they're very long. They open up extremely wide and then they close, right? So if the cans are squished together, what happens is he's going to make the attempt to pick up your garbage, trust me. But what happens is that arm hits the other can that's next to it, and then we have spillage, right? Which is a no-no, because then it's going to take some time to, it's all about time, right? We're in the transportation business, right? But we're just transporting garbage and recyclables. And transportation business is all about what? The time and the weight, right? So we want to get in and we want to get out. We want to get off the streets, right? We're very large vehicles, and we want to be out of your neighborhood as quick as possible, right? For the most part.
Okay, let's talk about recycling a little bit.
Sure.
You know better than either of us here about the current state of recycling worldwide. Tell us about that right now.
I see back in I think it was 2018 when we changed. I may be off by a year, but everyone will. If you've been here since then, everyone will understand it was one of those years where we made a slight change. Well, it wasn't a major change. We made a slight change to what you were able to put into the green bin, right? When China decided that they were going to, for the most part, not accept most of the United States recyclables, right, due to contamination levels, that kind of caused a rift in the entire industry, both in the folks that are providing the service at the curb and the folks that are sorting it and trying to sell it to a third party, and a myriad of steps are involved in recycling. And it's slowly starting to come back, but again, it also depends on who your material and recovery facility is, and who they are selling their products to, right? Because they can't collect, right? Our partner here in San Angelo is Butts Recycling. So Butts Recycling is not the bad guy because we can't bring mixed paper, right? We can't bring mixed paper because they don't have an outlet for it. And we don't accept certain numbers of plastics, right? We accept 1s and 2s because the other ones, there hasn't been an outlet for it. If an outlet became available for it, then I would imagine, I can't speak for Butts, but I would imagine if an outlet became available for those, we would have the product. Why would they? They would probably want it. But that just hasn't happened yet, right? Recycling is still in this recovery phase. Cardboard is good, right? The Amazons of the world and things like that, people ordering online is big, right? And so cardboard is always going to have a pretty strong market, as are the plastics number 1s and number 2s, right? So those are the ones that are easily accessible. A lot of our everyday products are provided in plastic number 1s and 2s, and that's what drives that market, right? It's what's available, and so there's a lot of those, and they typically are cleaner and they're easier to sort, they're easier to bale. And that's what the folks that the recyclers are selling to, that's what they want, right? So it's kind of a trickle-down effect. You're not going to be able to accept at the curb what does not have a final value on the end result, whoever that may be, right? Step number 5. It has to have a value because they're going to tell step number 4, hey, we don't want this. So step 4 still... and so then it comes down to the people picking it up at the curb saying, hey, look, we can't take this because we can't do anything with it. So it just becomes garbage at the end of the day. No matter where the end of the day is, it becomes garbage. And that's why the decision was made, hey, we need to pull it from the green bins because it wasn't being recycled anyway, right? Or at that point it was. And then we were told, here's the hard date, here's the hard stop, and you're unable to take it anymore. So, we'll see in the future, right? No one knows, right? It just depends. There's a lot of volatility in the world, so everyone is watching. The recycle experts, are watching and seeing what's going to go on, and maybe down the road things will start to come back into the stream.
So as far as the things we can recycle, I know it's important. We already said don't bag those. Mm-hmm. It's also important to make sure that your things are clean. Anything else you want to talk about with that?
Yeah, so the cleanliness of the recyclables is really what drove this major market change years ago, right? Because China was the number one buyer of U.S. recyclables, right? And so when the China sword happened, it was they're just contaminated, right? They're dirty. And what they mean by dirty, they don't mean that they're full of product. They just mean they didn't meet their standard, right? Which they have to be pretty clean. So rinsing, if you look at an aluminum can, right, of green beans or whatever we're buying, and all it takes is just it's just a quick rinse and a quick dry, right? You want to keep it dry because you don't want mold, right? It's just it's an empty, clean, and dry, right? That's always been the campaign all around the nation, right? Empty, clean, and dry, and that's how you keep the recycling program as robust as possible. And that's the people that really love recycling have zero problem doing that. But there's a certain part of the population, and it's their right that aren't recyclers, and they don't want to take the time to do it. And that's perfectly fine, but don't put it in the recycle bin, right? If you don't want to recycle, then don't take that tin can that is full of whatever it is and put it in your recycle bin because you're contaminating the entire load. So if you don't want to do it, let's have the cleanest recyclables that we can in the city, and if you want to recycle, do it, and let's do it right. And if you're just against recycling or don't want to take the time to do it, well, then just don't do it wrong, right? We would love for everybody to do it the right way, but we would prefer not have the contamination levels. And if you just don't want to do it, toss it in the garbage. We'd love for you to recycle it, but we don't want the whole loads contaminated because recycling's not, something that you're into.
Well, we have people that drive around looking for contaminated bins to hopefully get ahead of them. I rode along with Art from our solid waste department. That's what he does every day is he drives around trying to get ahead of the trucks so they don't dump the contaminated. And I was shocked at what people were putting in the green bins. So if the driver sees something sticking out of a green can that's obviously not recyclable, are they going to dump that into their truck?
They're not.
Okay.
So if a driver knows that, and let me say, Art is an absolute asset to the city's recycling program. Right, Art does a tremendous job of trying to stay ahead of it, trying to educate. He is an asset to this program. But so the answer is no, right? If a driver is going to, and again, that's where that PDV system comes in. If a driver pulls up to my house, and I clearly have styrofoam and we see a lot of water hoses. I don't know why water hoses break all the time. We see a lot of rubber water hoses. Styrofoam is a big thing because people think that's recyclable. And it makes sense. And I can see where people think that, right? I can see where they think styrofoam because they would associate it with being recyclable like plastic. It's not, right? It's garbage. We see a lot of, we've seen some animals, but the thing that really surprised me the most is babies' diapers, and why we would think that would be recyclable. And I've called people about it, and they're like, I just thought that would be something that could be recyclable. And
used.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know where that comes. We see it a lot, and it's really interesting. But we see.
Do you throw your baby's diapers?
I don't.
Thank you.
I don't.
Thank you for that.
My trash can. I have a toddler. My trash can smells awful because it's a diaper. But
yeah. No, we thank you for that. But we also see a lot of people trying to compost, and we do not have a compost program in the city, and the compost does not go into the green bin, and yes, it's a green bin, right? It's green, but it's not a compost bin. And so please, we do not want any of that. We don't want leaves, right? I think people move here, right? We're growing, right? We love people to move here. We love San Angelo to grow. And I think people may come from some other markets that might have had a green waste program, right, where you can put leaves and things like that at the curb, and a truck comes by and only picks up the green waste. It's popular all over the place in some of the large cities, and so I think that's where maybe some of that is coming from. Because the minute we say, "Hey, they can't really do that," like, "Oh man, I used to do that back home. I'm so sorry." So I think a lot of that is education, because they were used to doing it someplace else. But this is a single stream. Sorted facility, and it is not a compost facility. It's not green waste, so we don't want any branches. We don't want anything like that. This is plastic number 1s and 2s, and cardboard, and aluminum and tin cans, things of that nature. Right? That's what we put in our recycle bins. And to be quite honest with you, it's the things that we're using the most in our homes.
Well, we have a list of all the accepted items on our website. I'll put that somewhere down here that you can go to, coastatx.us/trash. And is that also on the top of the green bin on what is accepted? Or was that earlier when everything got removed? So that's probably not a good
Yeah, I would not.
Reference.
Yes.
Okay.
Thankfully those are starting to kind of fade and not be, mine I can't read. So, we just couldn't. When we made that change, it's almost an impossible, it's an impossible feat to go out there and change, 31,000
sticker on top of the
stickers on top. It's just something that.
So go to our website.
Go to the website. It's super simple. Yeah.
Anything else you want to add about recycling?
No, I would just like to reiterate that recycling is every other week, and it is not weekly. With we see more than several. It's a big city. A lot of folks still think that I would advise them to go on the website and check their maps. We see a lot of recycling coming out with garbage, and that's true on your recycle day, right? But we see a lot that are out every week, and those are the folks that are calling in saying we miss recycle, and it's, so it's a lot of work to kind of vet what's a miss, and those are the easy ones, right? You pull up a map and you just say, well, I'm sorry, Mr. or Mrs. It's this was your bulk day, so those are pretty easy, but you still have to do it, right? It's a lot of vetting and a lot of we have to figure out, was it a true miss? We need to go back there, and so we highly encourage everybody to know your schedule.
Go to the website for that, and you can check your map and see if you're in the red or blue region. We've got an interactive map that you can zoom in on, and it's pretty clear. So I personally, another tip from me, I print out my map and I put it on my fridge so I can see, because I forget all the time, is it recycling or is it bulk?
So do I.
Another reminder. There you go.
I do too. My neighbors ask me, and I go, well, I was just about to ask you. So, and
it's so true, though. I mean, I'm guilty of that. I go out and I look down and see what everybody's doing, and I'm like, that seems right.
Yep.
And if it's not, then I go to the website and I check. So, I mean, even us, sometimes we have to double check and make sure. So,
well, Brian, I'm going to print you one, and
okay,
you're
good.
going to put it on your fridge
Good
too,
deal.
and be like me and Joe.
Okay, cool.
Okay, all right. You want to move on to bulk?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, great service.
Let's talk about bulk. It is a great service.
It is.
And that's how we open up. Bulk is a great service. So,
yeah, look, another robust program that the city of San Angelo has for their citizens, right? It's a fantastic program, and I say robust because it is, right? It's every other week, and that's pretty substantial. So it gives people an opportunity every other week to start cleaning some things up, right? Mm-hmm. Those are designed for not only a convenience, but it makes the town look. It helps the town look very, very good. It gives people an opportunity that wouldn't normally load up a pickup truck or a trailer, or who can and can't get to the landfill on a Saturday or whenever, it's convenient, and it's been hugely successful. In some places it's very successful, right? There's a lot of people that put out a lot of stuff. So typically it's 5 cubic yards, right? And
so break that down a little bit more.
Yeah, I knew that was coming, right?
Yeah.
And that's hard, right? Even me being in the business, right? I wouldn't normally just look at something and go, oh wow, that's a 5 cubic yard. It's hard for me to even know what exactly is 5 cubic yards, right? And so we kind of give examples of measurement that we're all familiar with, right? So if you look at like the size of a washer and dryer, and if you lined up 3 washers and dryers, that would be about a 5 cubic yard, or your normal sized. I'll pick on Ford, a normal size like F-150 pickup truck bed, right? Not an 8-foot extended or whatever they're called, long bed. Your average sized pickup truck. Could be pretty close to 5 cubic yards.
That's a lot. I mean, it's a
lot.
That's a
yeah,
lot.
It really is. It's a robust program. I mean, it's about 10 bags of leaves in a nice square or circle would equal about that.
Regular bed, not a long bed. I think that'll resonate.
Yeah, like a regular, your normal pickup truck, right? Yeah. And that's open to interpretation, right? It's like, well, my pickup truck's normal and I've got a blah, blah. We all know what I'm saying, right? It's just your average half-ton pickup truck bed.
Mm-hmm.
How often do people put out too much? I'm curious.
Depends
about
on
that.
the time of year.
Okay.
In the fall, we see a lot of bags, right? A lot of leaves. People are doing their fall cleanups at home. And you'll see, especially in some of the areas that have obviously a lot of trees, you'll see people, I mean, we've seen 40, 50, and 60 bags of leaves.
I've seen it too.
Yeah, we've all seen it, right? A lot of times I see it on the PDVs, right? We see them because we're definitely going to document it, because the second we pick up 10 bags and we leave the other 30, they're going to be placing a call to either you or Republic or somebody saying that you were skipped, or go on Facebook and do what a lot of people like to do on Facebook, right? And so you in my opinion, if you have 30 some odd bags of leaves, you have every other week bulk pickup I personally don't see a problem with, you can put out all 30, great. I mean, put them out, but it's going to take us, 3 cycles, two cycles to get those. To me, that's not a problem, right? I don't have as many trees anymore because of the freeze, but when I did, I had 3, and I would have a good 20 bags, and I knew that I could only put 10 out, right? And I know in your head you're going, well, you can probably put out 100 and they're going to pick it up, but I don't, right? That's just not the way it works, right? I do what what I'm supposed to do as a citizen, and I don't call my driver and go, hey, I have 80 bags, I need you to get them. That's not the way it works, right? I put out my 10, and it takes me two cycles to do it, and that's just how you have to do it. Because I do get those calls. It's like, well, I mean, how? People say, I want to do the right thing, but please tell me what I'm supposed to do. I've got 30 bags. I'm like, well, look, we're not picking up those. We're not picking up those 30 bags because we're being mean. We're picking them up. We're not picking them up because we have so many other customers that we have to get to. So that's why, we want to make sure we get that route finished, and we don't want to leave your house on the ground when you have a hot water heater and maybe 2 bags of something, because we went to Brian's house and picked up 40 bags, and now we can't get you.
You bring up a good point. How quickly, when it comes to bulk, which this is probably very unpredictable, how quickly does a truck fill up? And then what is that process like? They probably have to go to the landfill to dump everything and then go back to their route. Is that how that works?
It's exactly how it works. And you're also dealing with non-compactable items for the most part, right? You're dealing with the washers and dryers and the couches, the mattresses, right? Those are basically you're putting a spring. Those things don't compact, right? So, and we take mattress, you put a mattress out. So when you start taking all those non-compactable items on a heavy day, you do fill up, and multiple trips to the landfill, which is another reason why it's very important to understand that that's another reason why we can't just take everything you have, right? Because there's not enough room and not enough time in the day. And that's why. It's not that we're being mean and we're saying, no, it's 10 because we say it's 10. It's 10 for a reason, because we've got to be able to finish those routes, because we have to be able to service every customer. And if it takes us 2 cycles to pick up all your stuff, then so be it, right? But we will get it done. So
regarding the items that can be picked up, there's obviously an extensive list of what can be picked up.
Right.
What can't be picked up? What's top of list?
Top of list, propane bottles, right? Obviously a no-no. Again, paint, construction debris. What I mean by that is if you just refabbed a house, right? I mean, it's not designed to be a roll-off for a construction job, right? And whether you hired somebody to do it or not, we're not picking on the folks that are fixing your home up, but it's not designed to pick up your doors that if you read, we see a lot of that. People are getting new doors and they put out 15 doors, and there's
a different process for that.
Well, it's construction debris, right? It's a roll-off process, or you bring it to the landfill, right? Yeah. I mean, that's not designed. It's designed for household, what you and I would typically have in our garage or our backyard. That's what it's designed for. If you're refabbing your house, or you're adding on to your patio outside or things of that, that's a construction job, right? And that there's a whole nother outlet for that. That's not designed for bulk pickup. And I would say a lot of the complaints that we get, that I hear, are, why don't y'all take, if I'm doing the work myself, why aren't you taking it? Well, it's just not household debris, right? That's a construction job, and that has another outlet, because that debris is heavier, it's more dense, there's a lot more of it, right? We don't want concrete, things of that nature, right? Because it's super heavy. I think I already said paint, but really the glass, right? We don't want, we have people that, God bless them. I wish I knew how. We have people that do their own windows at home. We can't take your old windows, right? They're full of glass, and once that glass gets put in, think about it, we're throwing it in the truck. We don't want that glass all over the streets, right? So we don't take things of that nature. So it's not construction debris related. It's mostly the stuff that you guys are using. The average person is doing at home, every day, working in their yard or cleaning out their garage, bicycles, things like that. Of course, take all that. If you have it in your garage and it's not hazardous, chances are it can go out in your bulk pickup. If you're doing a construction job at home, that's not what it's designed for. If you have someone working at your home, it's absolutely not designed for that because it's not a commercial, right? There's a difference between being a commercial job and being a residential service. This is a residential service paid for by the residents on their water bills. So it is not designed for your contractor to come in and do this, that, and the other, and then throw it all at the curb for the taxpayers that paid their water bill to pay for, right? That contractor, and I'm going to catch heat, but that contractor should be disposing of their own debris at the landfill properly. I catch a lot of flack off that one, but it's just the way it goes, right? It's just like the guys that are coming over to cut your grass, right?
That's what I was going to ask.
So it's another one that I catch a lot of flack on, is because I know a lot of those guys and they're like, man, I can't believe you won't let me do. So that is a commercial entity, right? You are out and they're mowing and they're doing their thing, right? They're mowing grass and they're taking care of people and they're making money and providing for their family. That's a business, right? And that business should have its own outlet for the waste that business is producing. So if I'm ABC Landscape and I come over and mow your grass and you don't like me to mulch and you tell me to bag it, and I have 15 bags of grass, that becomes their grass. That is no longer yours, right? That's a commercial entity. And I catch a lot of flack over that, but that's just the way it goes. That's fine. But typically, that is a residential service and it is not for a commercial entity to utilize. Some slips through the cracks, absolutely. But it is not designed for commercial folks to take advantage of.
So we had this question before, and I think we've answered it, but I want you to tell me a little bit more about it. So appliances that use Freon.
Yes.
Tell me the process of that for bulk.
Yeah, another controversial, I think I get a lot more questions on that than I do, why didn't you pick up my 30 bags, right? Look, Freon has to be eliminated from your refrigerator or your freezer, whatever you have, by a licensed technician, and it has to be, they have that orange sticker that goes on them.
Isn't it called green tagged?
Yeah,
it's not green.
Yeah, it's like a green tag, but it's orange or something along
green
those
tag,
lines.
or it's an orange tag.
Yeah, so you just have to have, unfortunately, and there's a cost associated to it, right? I'm not exactly sure what somebody charges to come out and do it, but you can't just cut it free online and just let it. That defeats the whole purpose of why it's not permitted by the state. If you're just cutting the line and letting it bleed out, it's defeating the purpose of why that law even exists, right? It's not a republic law, right? Republic's not saying, hey, we want you to spend another whatever X amount of dollars to have a technician come over. It's not us. It's the state saying that. I mean, we have to do it. People get mad at me over it. I don't make the rules, right? We just have to follow them. But you have to have somebody come over and properly bleed those lines. And then once it is tagged, our guys will pick it up. So if you don't tag it, we will not pick it up.
So in a similar fashion, if someone has a propane grill, if they took the propane tank out of it, could they put the grill in?
No, sir.
No? Okay.
No propane bottles.
No. So if they were disposing of the grill, and they took the propane out of the grill, could they put the grill in for bulk? Of
course.
Okay.
Yeah, on those barbecue grills, and by all means, I'm not a barbecue expert on propane, but I just know what mine looks like. And when I take the hoses off, I mean, there's absolutely no way that propane can be trapped in there because it's open on both ends. But so yes, you could absolutely barbecues all day long.
So when it comes to bulk placement, we talked about the bins earlier. Is there anything in particular about where, and should they space that a certain amount of distance from the trash bin? Is there any rules and regulations on that or advice?
Well, we want it to be visible, right? And I will say this. Let's be very conscious about what we don't want thrown away that's laying at the curb. we have inadvertently picked up some things that, that we shouldn't have. That we thought we should have, that people say we shouldn't have. We've picked up pools, kiddie pools and things like that, and people call and get mad, and then usually we either go out and replace it or say, hey man, it was literally right. So be conscious about where we're putting it.
Yeah.
Because if you're putting it, should be where your trash is picked up, right? And it should be not in the street. Keep it on as close to the curb as you can. Like on everyone's property is different. Mine is on exactly where my garbage cans goes, but it's about 5 feet behind them on my, I have mine's, this particular place is rocks, so it's on my rocks, and they see it and they know where to. They're going to see it. They'll see it, but just make sure it's not where you keep things that you want to keep, because our guys are going to throw it. If it's by the curb and it's bulk day, they're going to think you don't want it anymore. Mm-hmm. So try not to put anything that you want out by the curb, so we don't inadvertently pick it up, because it happens a lot.
I know something that I do is whenever I have bulk, if I have lighter weight material, I try to put that on the bottom, and stack heavier stuff on it, because we talked about those winds earlier, and you don't want to dirty your neighborhood by things blowing away before they get picked up.
Yep, so. That's exactly how I do it. So put the lighter stuff on the bottom and the heavier stuff on top, in case you get a wind gust. We don't have stuff in the street. So it's a great point.
So I want to pivot away from bulk real quick, because you mentioned something. So you talked about glass, and we get that question pretty frequently: is why can't San Angelo recycle glass? Can you explain how expensive that is, why we can't, and the ins and outs of all that?
Yeah, as good as I can. Right, I'm not an expert on glass recycling, because it's just not something that we provide here. Right, actually, we don't provide it. I personally don't provide it in any of the cities that we have. Not Republic, what we have running out of our business unit. We don't do any glass, but glass, you have to have an end result, right? And it's something that at one point in time, I know it was very popular, and there were glass recyclers pretty much everywhere, and they were putting it in, I think they were putting it in asphalt and things of that nature, and like anything else, somebody found a cheaper way of doing it, and then now no one does it anymore. For San Angelo specifically, in order for us to even take glass, you would have to have, first of all, a place to bring it, which we don't have. And second of all, it wouldn't be able to be commingled with the recycling, because it would be an impossible process to sort, right? You think about broken glass bottles, there would be no way to hand sort that. So it would have to be a separate container just for glass, which would have to be a separate service just for glass, right? But even less important than that, it has to have a place to go. And I believe one of the reasons why glass kind of died out is because if you think about transportation, it's all about weight, right? Weight and fuel. So glass is extremely heavy. So it costs a fortune to ship around all over the place, and that's kind of why it's died off. I don't know of very many glass recyclers. There's a handful in the state, because we do have some markets where it exists. There's a handful that are still around the country, and a handful in the state for that matter. But around here, we'd have to have an outlet for it, and it would not be able to be a part of the current program that we have, because it wouldn't be able to be commingled. So there's a lot of complications when you're dealing with sorting glass. You can imagine the safety involved in sorting glass.
Yeah, I've seen it firsthand when we filmed at Butts and saw glass items come by, and they're touching all these things, and I was just like, oh my gosh, if they were to slice their hand open super easy.
Correct. So. Yeah, and there's a whole safety aspect to glass in and of itself when you even get to where it's getting recycled, when it's getting crushed. You have to have a lot of PPE, because it's, think about glass particles in the air. How fine that stuff can be. And so it's a process, and it's an expensive one. And, it's part of the reason why it's kind of dying off. It's just a very expensive process.
What about paper too? People used to recycle paper, and I have to stop my husband. He's probably going to get mad at me for mentioning him, but I have to stop him sometimes from putting paper in the recycling. We don't do that anymore.
Yeah, so it's back in again. When we were talking about the recycling a while ago, it's one of those things that the commodity just kind of died, and so mixed paper just basically became worthless. Right, it's just garbage, and so the recyclers at that time they don't want it in their stream because it's just another thing they have to sort. When you have a recycle stream, and you have items that are in it that are not recyclable, it becomes garbage. So you're creating another step in the process. This person has to sort this trash out of the good recyclables. Then they have to put it in a garbage container, right? We'll use butts because it's here. So we have roll-offs at butts that are strictly for what's called residual stuff that's going back to the landfill. All that contamination. So we've already picked it up and we've already dropped it off at butts. Now we have to go back to butts and we have to pick it up again and we have to bring it to the landfill, right? So it creates, again, another expense, more time, and quite frankly, you're defeating the purpose of recycling when you're having to go back to the actual recycler and pick it up, which is why we want people to be as clean as possible in their recycling and don't contaminate it, because it's putting extra steps which are driving costs, not only for us, but for butts, right? Not the end user, because there's no outlet for the customer. There's no outlet to recoup those costs, right? Because it's in your bill and you can't recoup it. But the more we can keep the cost down on the recycling, right, the better off we're going to be, because then, when Butts goes and we have a contract with Butts, right, and the cleaner the recyclables get, the less we're throwing away in the garbage, the less it's going to cost to recycle, and it's all over the country, right? It's the cleaner it is, the cheaper it is to recycle, right? And you keep it out of the landfill, which is the whole point, right? Recyclables going to landfill just breaks my heart, right? Because if it's a bunch of cardboard that's just contaminated with peanut butter and cats and whatever else is in there, it just breaks my heart, because it's you're adding another step to the process, taking stuff to the landfill, and it's like, man, that stuff could have been, if we just would have concentrated on what we were doing, that stuff could be turned into the next box that you have delivered to your doorstep.
Well, and I was just about to say this, so you segued into that again very nicely. So talk about why it's important that the recycling program is a success, not only for recycling and how much that costs, but also the landfill. You kind of touched on it there, but encourage people to take recycling seriously, and so that the program can be successul.
Yeah, you want your recycling program locally to be successful for. There's a lot of reasons why we want to recycle, right? But we want to be good stewards of the environment, right? We want to reuse things as many times as we can and reduce our footprint. The second thing is, it keeps those items out of the landfill, right? And you want your landfill space, which is extremely valuable, and not only from a financial standpoint, but just it's valuable to have landfill space, because it's very hard to get again once you run out, right? The federal government and state governments, they don't just hand out landfill permits, every day, right? It's a process. And you want to utilize the space that you already have. And that's being a good steward of taxpayer dollars, when you can stretch your landfill out as long as you can without having to either close it and build a new one, or build new cells, or add on to it, because all that costs money, right? And so if we can keep things out of the landfill, it stretches our landfill even further, which is great for everybody.
Okay, so I have another question. If there's something if there's items that can't be placed in the regular trash service, what can citizens do?
You mean in terms of
landfill?
Oh, can they come to the landfill?
Yeah.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Talk about that.
So, another piece of this robust Cadillac service is what we call it, right? Is with your water bill, you do have access to the landfill, right? You can come in San Angelo. It's one time a month with your water bill.
Paid water bill.
Paid water bill. Yeah, please pay your water bills. Yeah.
Most recent paid water
Most
bill,
recent
right?
paid water bill.
There's some rules there, and we've got them on our website.
Yeah, there's rules.
Definitely want to help people out on that.
Yeah. There's rules, and I can just speak from the landfill piece. You have to have your ID has to match, the name that's on there. We have to make sure it's your house and it's you and you're the right person, the representative for that particular address. And once a month you can come out to the landfill and bring those bags of leaves, right? It's and you can bring not only what. Now I will say this: we have to ensure that it's the same type of things that we talked about. That are legal to bring to a landfill, right? But you can bring a little bit more items when you're bringing it yourself. So that's your opportunity to bring those doors. That's your opportunity to bring, the items that the larger pieces of wood. Another thing that we didn't even talk about that's really quick is that's the best outlet for your tree limbs. Although we do take them at bulk pickup, we catch a lot of flack over it has to be bundled. 4-foot bundles, they have to be cut. They don't have to be the most needy, they don't have to look like a cord of wood. We're not asking anyone to do that. But they have to be 4-foot bundles with rope or something to where those guys can grab it and go, right? The reason for the 4-foot thing is it has to fit in the truck. And I don't know if anybody has ever paid attention to what the back of that truck looks like, but it's not very large. So you can't take an 18-foot tree limb that the storm blew down and expect that's going to fit in the back of that garbage truck, right? It's just, it can't fit. So the 4-foot is for speed of recovery, right? We want our guys to be able to pick it up and go, so they're not out there all day picking up individual tree branches. But they have to fit in the back of the truck, which is not very wide. So they have to fit. So your water bill and the landfill piece is a fantastic outlet for it. And the beauty of that is you don't even have to come down to the working face of the landfill. You have a green space, right? You come over and you drop it and you're out the door. Very, very easy. And then the other items that you bring into the landfill with your water bill is the customer convenience center, right? If you don't have large items or a trailer, you don't even get off, at this point, you don't even get off any concrete. Right, it's completely paved and clean. You're coming up, and you're dumping your stuff into roll-off bins, and it's extremely convenient because not a lot of folks feel comfortable going to the working face. It's not fun to go to the working face. I mean, I guess maybe if you had a child with you, they get a kick out of the working face, right?
I've done it once or twice. I remember the first time, and this was years ago, I went down in the actual land. It was overwhelming because I was also not in the right kind of vehicle. I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to get out of here. And things have changed. But like, I can speak from experience. Like, I was like, they're letting me drive down here. Oh my gosh, they're letting me do all this. So that convenience center is really nice just to be able to drop things off and then just leave.
Yep. So it is super convenient. So definitely take advantage of that, especially with your large limbs and it's a great outlet with folks that have. We talked about those bags of leaves. People have a lot of bags of leaves. It's a great outfit for those folks that don't want to wait 2 weeks, right? It's everyone knows somebody with a pickup truck. We live in Texas. We can figure it out, right? And that's a great outlet for that.
So when it comes to when you bring your items there, if it's a trailer, if it's the back of a truck, do they need to be tied down? Do they need to be tarped? Are there requirements when it comes to that when people bring those types of things into the landfill? On
a trailer, so your trailers always have to be tarped, right? There is a tarp rule out there. So your trailers have to be tarped, and that just keeps our highways clean, right? It's the whole reason why it's out there. I think all of us have probably been behind that one person going to the landfill with tree branches. And you've seen them fall off, and you've seen.
It's like a Michael Bay movie. You're just.
Yep, you've seen. Amen. Right. Our office is on Bell Street, so I take that road every single day, and I'm always. I wouldn't say always. A lot of times, I'm behind somebody who's on their way to the landfill, and they're untarped. And there's, you're exactly right. You're weaving, right, and I've seen mattresses. I've seen some things fall out of people's trailers. That's why it's good to be tied down. It has to be tarped and tied down tight if you're bringing a trailer out there for sure.
Well, Joe, anything else we didn't talk about you want to cover?
The communication piece, right? Obviously, you can always reach out to Republic, and from a residential standpoint, always, feel free to reach out to the water office or Republic. There's always nobody's perfect. There's always going to be hiccups, but our folks are out there every single day, rain, sleet, or snow for the most part. Streets allowing, rain, sleet, or snow, doing the best they can to, provide provide this service, to provide it quick and fast, but anytime we have a mistake or a perceived mistake, we absolutely want to know about it so we can rectify it, right? We're just out here to try to do a good job for everybody, so we appreciate you guys, and this outlet here is great because we're able to kind of cascade information to folks that wouldn't maybe, hopefully, would find this helpful, right?
Yeah.
If they don't, it was a good conversation for the three of us, right?
Well, and I'll piggyback on your communications. If follow our Facebook page, visit our website. If there's ever any updates on trash, whether that's holidays or bad weather, we're going to post that information. We're going to send it out to the media. So follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. If you have a question, message us. We'll be happy to try to answer that. Try to answer it with the city or get you in touch with Joe or someone at Republic Services. So.
All right. Well, thanks so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
For more information, visit our website.